I am Sasha, and I am joining you today from Ethstat Ethical Stationery. And thanks so much to the British Library for having me today, and here to talk to you about putting sustainability at the heart of your business, which is something that we do as part of our business. It's part of our DNA, really. So let me take you through to the next slide. So Ethstat, we are a social enterprise community interest company. We are the only one to do facility management in the UK. So we're super unique in our structure and on what we do. And part of that is to do with people and planet, as you can see, and transparency, which is really key for us. So if we just read here below, it says that for us, there is no separation between people and planet, working and giving. We see them as intertwined strands. Everything is integrated, from the homeless person that runs our dispatch to our office's gender and ethnic balance and the reused plastic-free packaging your order comes in. We think carefully about what we do. And that has been at the core of what we do from the setup of our business. So from setting up as a community interest cooperative and a social enterprise to ensure that all of our figures in the money that we spend, the way that we spend it, who we give the money to as part of our social enterprise setup and the community interest cooperative setup is fully transparent. This means that we can, like, if anyone is wanting to have a look and see where the money is going, it's just fully there. And we have a really a lot of this information comes from the impact report that we share to our clients. I think there's a copy online as well, and it just lets you see where the money is going and how we're spending it. And for us, that's really key to being sustainable, because a lot of businesses, I think, you don't always know where the money's going, and you don't always know how the people that are being impacted by the business, like how they're being treated. And it's one of those things when you're looking after supply chains and you're part of supply chain, like we are as a business, to do facility management and to look at supply, then you have to be really careful about the different avenues that you choose to work with. As I'm sure that most of you know, modern day slavery is still very much a thing. There's so much child slavery still happening. And it's one of those things that when you can kind of pick and choose your supply chain, then you get to support the correct practices that are making sure that people are being treated in the way that we ourselves would want to be treated. Let me just go on to the next slide. So as you can see the breakdown about employing 15,448 hours of living wage work, which again is one of those things that, you know, a lot of companies still don't pay their a living wage, and we believe that that's that's like the minimum, because I mean, especially when you are based in London like we are, everything, you know, you just need to be able to afford to live. So that's something that we've always seen as part of the standard. And then you can also see by ethnicity and gender. Part of what we do is really the gender and ethnicity has it's come about because there aren't that many companies, particularly within supply. If you look at facility management companies, especially through my experience of working, that have a core team that are not, that are made up of BAME kind of employees and it's really something to be able to bring that to the table when you're speaking to a lot of people who do come from like a white middle class background, and your face looks very different to theirs. Then you know that you're going to represent, you're going to bring something a little bit different, just bring a slightly different voice. So it's really important to us that we can bring something, bring a different outlook, because everyone has a different story to tell, and that's something that runs through us. So as you can see, part of what we do is to give jobs to temporary jobs to homeless people, to people who have just really struggled to find work. And we use the projects that we do. So for example, at the moment we are packing 20,000 Christmas hampers, and kind of just well-being hampers for different companies that we work with. And we have given employment to as many struggling with health, and there are so many layers again to sustainability, that we don't just look at the maybe the packaging or what it's made from, but we then add another layer of social and sustainable value, and part of that is bringing the profits that we have back into the community. And for us, it's our local community here in Croydon, where we have it's actually how we were engaged in this presentation, because we've been using our local Croydon library to do the wrap and pack for these hampers, and give work to people who really need it. Especially, I think Christmas is always one of those particularly hard times, especially if you're street homeless and you're out in the cold. And we look at all of those different things and just think, okay, how can we really, do a little bit extra, a lot extra, hopefully, and help others. And that's just a little bit about, obviously discrimination is so very real, and it's always happening. And again, it's something that is just part of who we are as a company, being full of ethnic minorities. We've got a little bit of stats again to share with you guys about where our finances go, who we help. So as part of our social enterprise kind of mission is to help people, to help end homelessness, so no little thing, and to also give back to those with dementia. So these are come from very personal places, and I think when doing anything from a sustainable point of view, or even just like a social point of view, if you're operating from your truth and what then it's gonna come out and always be kind of something very real and meaningful. So Yasmin, who's one of the co-founders, her mum had dementia for 12 years, and we're on a mission. We've actually just launched our own coffee, which is amazing, which is the only plastic-free tin of coffee, completely fair trade, and it's completely non-for-profit, so all profits go towards supporting people with dementia. And her mum had dementia for 12 years, so she has had a lot of she gained a lot of knowledge about how to care for someone with dementia, the different things that made a difference. And one of those things is giving people with dementia dolls. They're like a weighted doll that feels very realistic, and really offers holistic, unmedicated comfort and something really tangible that really helped for her own mum. Here we have supply essentials. This is over COVID time. This is how we accessed our supply chain to kind of really pivot on what we were doing. We were mainly doing stationery, and then we had to move into PPE. PPE in itself doesn't sound very sustainable. But the ways that we looked at it differently and did things a lot more differently was to say, okay, how can we procure as close to home as possible? So that's a really big thing for us, is to make sure that the way that we give our the supplies that we use are made as close to the UK as possible, because the carbon footprint that is generated through supply from, obviously from overseas, from Asia, from China, which so much of our supply comes from those areas, from the Middle East, is just huge. So we were like, how can we get a sanitizer that is made in the UK, made in Europe? How can we get face masks that are made in the UK and the Europe? And they are there, they're just a little bit maybe harder to find sometimes, or a little bit more expensive. But for us, it's very worthwhile investing in those supply chains, because we can see the benefits sustainability wise of really fostering those relationships. We also supported one of the very few female-led and owned PP supply chains, which is really amazing. A lot of it is very male-dominated, and we were just really happy and glad to support a female-led operation and just work with them. So yes, it's looking at the point of supply, like where is it manufactured? And for us, one of the big things that we were able to do, especially with the UK, was to make our own face masks, which were made here in the UK, totally reusable, like washable over 100 times, made from, it's UK fabric. And you had and still have so many face masks being made out in the Middle East, out in China, Malaysia, etc. And the carbon footprint from those products is just so huge, whereas we found a way to make them here in the UK, support UK manufacturing, support obviously, you know, that chain of there's no modern day slavery there involved, and deliver a really great quality supply, like a product to our customer who was wanting these. And we also supplied them in totally biodegradable, compostable, home compostable packaging. Again, you know, you go into the shops and you buy face masks, and they're all covered in just, you know, your normal plastic that you have to throw away. So again, it's another layer of sustainability, and how that impacts our environment long term. So again, another layer is deliveries. We look at delivering as much as possible plastic free, and, you know, making sure that any packaging is recycled. We deliver with packaging that is plastic free, because we know that a lot of people won't actually recycle the packaging. So we want to make sure that they have easily accessible to recycling. Like a lot of people, you know, you can chuck your cardboard in the paper recycling and you'll know that it will get recycled, whereas plastic is it's a little bit of a different story. So that's one of those things that we try and make accessible to our customers. And then we deliver through DPD and Royal Mail, and they offset their carbon emissions and also plant trees. Another way that we've worked with our couriers and delivering social enterprise impact is to use a courier driver. That's Edward, who is just amazing. And he now runs his own social enterprise. He has a story of being homeless when he first came to the UK, and he was a refugee. And we started to work with him in 2020. And he just found a way to deliver things when other things weren't possible, which was just amazing, like an absolute legend. And he has now set up a social enterprise, which is so amazing. And now, you know, provide, he has now been able to grow his delivery team who he works with, and give work to other refugees, other drivers who really need the work. So again, it's fostering those partnerships wherever we can to really make another positive impact. And there's so many layers that you can work with other people, and the supply chains, the delivery chains that you're part of. Like, there's always things that you can do. It might not seem completely obvious at first, but there's always so much of a positive impact that you can create. So another thing that we were able to do, which was really amazing, I mean, so we work with Nightwatch in Croydon, who is, so Croydon is one of the second, I think it's got the second most amount of homeless people in I think it's either London, I think it's London, the area of London, which is just crazy. And Nightwatch feed the homeless every day, every evening, and make sure that they have like basic supplies and things like that. We ourselves go there during the week and help out and feed the homeless, and just make sure that, you know, we're just part of that as well. So they're very like, we really, you know, love the fact that there is that support system, because, you know, it's just, I can't imagine you know, having to go through homelessness. So we were able to deliver PPE through our through the customers that we worked with. They then allowed us to get access to more of a bigger supply chain, and then offer that support to hostels who were really struggling, to other places that just really, like, without PP they would have had to have stopped in COVID and closed their doors to people who were just really needing that help and that service. So it was really great to be able to use the what we were doing for other people, and actually, you know, really help people who are very desperate. And then you can see a little bit more about the impact that we did, and how we've helped the hostels, the volunteers that we protected, the packing jobs that we created. Yeah. So this is a little bit about some of the women that we were able to help through a few of our projects last year. We've got Mandy, who is just such a lovely lady, and she's worked for so many years as a social worker. She has just really struggled. She lives in her car, you know, despite having a job, and, you know, just really just trying to, you know, get on with her life. She hasn't really had much support for her mental health, and that's really meant that she struggled to kind of maintain like work and a home. And so we were able to give her employment, which was amazing. Donna, again, has had like some bad mental health, and we met her through Nathan, who is one of our who's our dispatch guy, and he lives in the same hostel as Donna, and so she's in there, she's working like living in the hostel to rebuild her life and her mental health, but again just struggling to find full-time work. And Josephine, again, she is being relied on by a lot of her wider family here in the UK and Jamaica, and just to be able to give her employment so that she can then go and help her family and children as much as possible, because she had the work that she currently gets just isn't enough to be able to help, you know, all of those in her wider community. It's just really great. So this is Nathan. He is our dispatch guy, and he is an ex-spender and has like the heart of gold. He is just amazing. And we all met him first when we were doing a wrap and pack. So doing our sustainable UK made face coverings, we were distributing them to to the company called Amy, and Nathan was there as part of one of the people who we were giving temporary work to, and he still lives in a homeless hostel, but we have been able to give him full-time work, and he hasn't had a permanent position in so many years because people just look at him and they don't trust him. And it's again that thing of how can you make a difference to others and really help to rebuild their lives, and that is all very much part of sustainability for us. It's not just a product, it's not just one avenue, it's the whole thing that people and planet have to tie together, and we have to take care of each other to be able to really make that true difference. So this again, so the coffee that I mentioned earlier on, which is really amazing, this is all the proceeds from that, as well as what we do as a business, go towards helping those with dementia. And we were again carers, care homes were super affected by a lack of PPE over the pandemic, and they were, I guess you probably have heard the stories, people requesting to get PPE and just, nothing, no one's coming, no help, and how are they meant to go on and do their jobs. And so many dementia patients and, elderly patients just being kind of stuck in their care homes and not able to do anything, and, getting COVID. So again, we were sending out PPE packs to, do what we could to support some of those homes, and, just make a difference through our supply chain, which is really great. And also to give dementia dolls out. And again, I think, now more than ever, people have experienced like a lot of trauma and a lot of distance and isolation. And it's how can we really, help to provide a little bit of a way out of that feeling. So this is that we gave 6,700 PPE packs for care homes and the 523 dementia dolls. So this is how we set up in the late 1990s. This is a story about how we actually began as a company. So the co-founders, Yasmin and Bruce, they came from the environmental movement when it was, kind of babies. People didn't really know about carbon footprints. People didn't really understand what we were kind of talking about a lot of the time, the way that people kind of know now. And that's always been very much the heart of what we do. So being powered by renewable energy, recycling all of the packaging that we can, reusing packaging, reducing packaging, making sure that packaging is plastic free and recyclable whenever possible, and carbon neutral. We plant trees every month, and I know that that's become a lot more of a big thing now, which is amazing because, we need to be planting as many trees as we can, because a lot about what we do and what we need to do as a whole is about regeneration and, not just kind of fighting climate change, but actively working to give back to the earth and protecting it. So again, about the last mile that it says, so we look at, like what I said before, about looking at the point of where things are manufactured to when you actually receive it in your hand, how far has it had to travel? Has it had to travel all the way from China? And again, there are things like recycled paper sometimes, like it has that story that it's recycled, or it can be made from bamboo, things like that, which is a sustainable resource. But if you have to kind of ship it all the way from Asia, becomes a lot less sustainable compared to creating more supply chains that are local. So there's a lot of paper that will say recycled, but the pulp has often come from the UK, being shipped overseas, recycled, like the pulp is then it's made into pulp, it's then shipped back over to a factory, then recycled there, like made into paper, and then finally shipped back to the UK or wherever. And there's a lot of those things where, it sounds great, but when you actually track the miles that it has gone to, a lot of it, the carbon emissions from it are pretty monumental. So that again is something that we try and reduce as much as we can. So just a little bit about the carbon kind of, or the environmental stats that we've got. And the last thing as well is that we have our own tree pen that we've created. I'll just show you here. And it's the only one in the UK that is 100% plantable. It's completely, so it's made, so even like the core, like the metal part itself, it can all be, once you finish with it, stuck in the ground, planted, and it will completely biodegrade in up to a year. We put seeds in the little tip, and that means that the cornstarch that the green parts are made of, once they biodegrade, nourish the seeds, which help it to grow. And then, so we put tree seeds in our pens with the idea that we need to plant as many trees as possible. And how can we give back to the earth? Because, you know, again, so many pens are basically single-use plastics. Once you finish with them, you just have to chuck them away. We are trying to create, you know, products and a way of being that our products don't remain on the earth way longer than us. So yes, we've created this pen, which is amazing and we really love. And yes, I feel like I've talked quite a bit. That is the end of my presentation. If you have any questions, please let me know. Yes.